Before you listen any further, pause for a moment. Ask yourself one honest question. How many times have you said, "I will start when I feel motivated," and then watched another day disappear? Most people never change, not because they lack ability, but because they are waiting for a feeling that only comes after the work is done. In the next few minutes, you're going to understand something most people never do: why motivation is not missing, why you are not broken, and why the moment you start moving, everything inside you begins to change. Stay with me, because this message is not here to inspire you. It sits here to activate you. Most people grow up believing a quiet lie that sounds kind and reasonable. They are told that motivation comes first and action comes second. That one day they will wake up feeling ready, powerful, confident, and clear. That the fire will appear inside them naturally and pull them forward. So they wait. They wait for energy. They wait for certainty. They wait for the perfect emotional moment that never truly arrives. This lie feels comforting because it removes responsibility from the present moment. It tells you that doing nothing right now is acceptable because you are still preparing. It allows you to delay effort without guilt. But slowly, quietly, it trains you to associate action with emotion instead of commitment. And over time, that association weakens your ability to move at all. Motivation is treated like a missing ingredient instead of a result. People say they would work harder if they just felt motivated. They would focus if the mood was right. They would start if confidence appeared. But motivation is not something that visits you randomly. It is something your brain releases after it sees proof of movement and progress. When you wait for motivation, you are asking your mind to reward you before you have done anything to deserve the reward. And the brain does not work that way. The brain rewards effort, completion, and forward motion. It does not reward intention or thinking. That is why planning feels safe, but never satisfying. That is why dreaming feels good, but never changes your life. This is why so many people feel stuck, even though they think all the time. Their minds are full, but their actions are empty. And because there is no action, there is no feedback. No feedback means no motivation. So the cycle repeats. Waiting creates stagnation. Stagnation creates doubt. Doubt creates more waiting. The truth is uncomfortable but freeing. Motivation does not start the engine. Action does. Even small imperfect action sends a signal to the brain that something is happening. And the moment the brain senses movement, it begins to cooperate. Focus increases. Energy starts to rise slowly and quietly. This is why the hardest part of any task is the beginning. Not because the task is difficult, but because the brain has not yet received proof that the effort is worth supporting. Once movement begins, the brain adjusts. It starts allocating resources. It starts releasing chemicals that support continuation. What felt heavy begins to feel manageable. Most people misinterpret this early resistance as a sign that they should stop. They think difficulty means misalignment. But difficulty at the start is not a warning. It is a gate. Everyone who builds something meaningful walks through it. Those who turn back mistake discomfort for danger. The lie about motivation also creates dependency. You begin to believe that your performance depends on your mood. So when the mood drops, your standards drop with it. You become inconsistent, not because you lack discipline, but because you tied your effort to emotion. And emotions are unstable by nature. Strong people are not emotionally stable all the time. They are structurally stable. Their actions do not collapse when feelings change. They have decided in advance what must be done, regardless of internal weather. That decision removes negotiation from the moment, and without negotiation, action becomes easier. Waiting for motivation also keeps people trapped in self-judgment. They blame themselves for not feeling driven enough. They think something is wrong with them, but nothing is wrong. They are simply following the wrong sequence. They are trying to feel their way into action instead of acting their way into feeling. The mind learns through evidence, not promises. Every time you act without motivation, you teach your brain that movement is possible, even when you feel resistance. That lesson is powerful. Over time, resistance loses its authority. It no longer controls your behavior. It becomes background noise instead of a command. This is why confidence is built, not discovered. Confidence grows when the brain sees you keep going despite discomfort. It is earned through proof, not thought. And the fastest way to build proof is to act when you least feel like it. That is when the lesson is strongest. The lie about motivation also keeps people addicted to inspiration. They watch videos, read quotes, listen to speeches searching for a spark, but inspiration without action fades quickly. It creates emotional spikes, followed by crashes, and after each crash, the person feels worse than before. Real growth is quieter. It does not rely on emotional highs. It relies on repetition. Small actions done daily build trust with yourself, and trust with yourself is the deepest form of motivation. When you know you will act, no matter how you feel, hesitation loses its grip. People who succeed understand something simple. They do not ask how they feel before they work. They ask what the work is. That shift alone changes everything. It removes drama. It removes overthinking. It replaces emotional dependency with clarity. The brain respects consistency. When it sees you show up again and again, it stops fighting you. Resistance decreases not because the work becomes easier, but because the brain learns that resistance is no longer effective. It adapts to your standard. This is why motivation appears after you begin, not before. It is the brain's way of supporting behavior. It sees as established. It rewards what is repeated. It strengthens what is practiced. It does not support hesitation. It does not encourage waiting. Once you understand this, the illusion breaks. You stop waiting for permission to begin. You stop asking how you feel. You stop looking for signs. You simply move, and movement changes everything faster than thought ever could. The biggest lie about motivation is that it is required. It is not. It is optional. Discipline is required. Structure is required. Action is required. Motivation follows behind quietly once the work is already underway. When you stop chasing motivation and start choosing action, you feel a strange relief. The pressure to feel ready disappears. The fear of not being enough fades. You realize you were never broken. You were just waiting in the wrong place. And the moment you take responsibility for movement instead of mood, your life begins to shift. Not loudly, not instantly, but steadily. And that steady change is the kind that lasts. Waiting feels harmless on the surface, but it quietly changes the way your mind works. Each time you delay action, you teach your brain that discomfort is something to escape. The brain records that lesson carefully. It learns that avoiding effort brings relief, and anything that brings relief gets repeated automatically without conscious choice. At first, the delay is small and barely noticeable. You postpone a task for later in the day. You tell yourself tomorrow will be better. You promise that you will start when things feel clearer. But the brain does not hear promises. It only remembers patterns, and the pattern it sees is hesitation followed by comfort. Over time, waiting becomes your default response. When something feels challenging, your body automatically pulls back. You don't feel a dramatic fear. You feel tired, distracted, uncertain. Those feelings are not random. They are learned signals telling you to stop before discomfort appears. This is how people become stuck without realizing it. They believe they are being careful or patient or strategic, but in reality they are rehearsing avoidance, and avoidance does not stay small. It grows. The more you wait, the heavier starting feels the next time. Waiting also weakens your trust in yourself. Each delayed action becomes a broken agreement, and the mind keeps score. When you repeatedly tell yourself you will act and then don't, your brain stops believing you. That loss of self-trust is subtle but powerful. Once self-trust erodes, motivation collapses, not because you lack desire, but because your brain has learned that your intentions do not lead to action, so it stops providing energy. It stops offering focus. It conserves resources because past evidence says effort will not follow. This is why people feel mentally tired before they even begin. The fatigue is not from work. It is from internal conflict. Part of them wants change. Another part expects disappointment. That tension drains energy before action ever starts. Waiting also amplifies fear. The longer you delay, the more space fear has to grow. The task becomes bigger in your mind. The consequences feel heavier. The risk feels higher. Not because reality changed, but because imagination filled the gap. Action interrupts fear. Waiting feeds it. When you move, fear shrinks. When you pause, fear expands. That is why starting often feels scarier than continuing. Once you are in motion, fear loses its grip. The brain also confuses waiting with safety. When nothing happens, the brain feels temporarily calm. No effort, no risk, no exposure. But that calm is deceptive. It is not peace, it is stagnation. And stagnation slowly weakens confidence and resilience. This is why people who wait too long begin to doubt their abilities. Skills rust when they are not used. Courage fades when it is not practiced. The mind adapts downward. It adjusts to a smaller life without you noticing. Waiting also trains impatience. Ironically, the more you delay, the harder it becomes to tolerate effort. Small discomforts feel overwhelming. Minor obstacles feel exhausting because you trained your nervous system to expect ease instead of engagement. This is not a character flaw. It is conditioning. And conditioning can be reversed, but only through action, not through understanding, not through motivation, through repeated proof that you can move even when resistance appears. Strong people are not immune to resistance. They have simply learned that resistance is not a signal to stop. It is a signal to begin. Waiting taught them nothing. Action taught them everything. When you act despite hesitation, you send a powerful message to your brain. You tell it that discomfort is survivable. You tell it that effort does not equal danger. That message rewires fear responses over time. Waiting also distorts your sense of timing. You begin to believe you are behind, that others are ahead, that you missed your chance. But most of that pressure comes from inaction. Movement restores perspective. It brings you back into the present. This is why even small actions matter. A single step breaks the waiting cycle. It proves to your brain that momentum is possible. And once momentum exists, weakness begins to lose its authority. People who act early gain an advantage that has nothing to do with talent. They build tolerance. They build endurance. They build self-respect. While others wait for perfect conditions, they grow stronger in imperfect ones. Waiting makes life feel heavy. Action makes it feel alive. Even difficult action brings energy because it aligns effort with direction. Stagnation drains because nothing is moving forward. This is why the cost of waiting is always higher than it appears. You don't just lose time, you lose sharpness, you lose confidence, you lose belief in your own word, and those losses compound quietly. The moment you stop waiting and start moving, something shifts internally, not instantly, but noticeably. The mind wakes up, the body responds, energy returns slowly, as trust is rebuilt. Waiting made you weaker not because you were incapable, but because you stopped practicing strength. And strength returns the same way it was lost, through use. Once you understand this, you stop negotiating with hesitation. You stop asking permission to act. You recognize waiting for what it is, a habit that can be broken. And the moment you choose movement over delay, you begin reversing the damage, not with motivation, with action. Discipline is often misunderstood because people confuse it with motivation or excitement. They think discipline means feeling driven, inspired, or intense. But discipline has nothing to do with emotion. Discipline is a decision made in advance that does not change when feelings change. It is calm, steady, and unemotional. It does not rise or fall with mood. Emotions are unstable by nature. They change with sleep, weather, stress, and circumstance. If your behavior depends on emotion, your results will always be inconsistent. Some days you will feel capable, other days you will feel empty. Discipline removes that instability by making action independent from feeling. This is why disciplined people look boring from the outside. They are not chasing emotional highs. They are repeating simple actions daily. They do not feel heroic. They feel committed. And that commitment compounds quietly while others wait for excitement. Discipline does not ask how today feels. It asks what today requires. That shift alone changes everything. When action is based on requirement instead of emotion, the mind stops negotiating. There is no debate, there is only execution. Most people waste energy deciding whether to act. Disciplined people save energy by deciding once. They remove the daily question of should I or should I not. The decision was already made. That removes friction before it appears. This is why routines are powerful. They eliminate choice. When something is scheduled, it happens regardless of mood. Mood becomes irrelevant. And when mood becomes irrelevant, consistency becomes possible. Emotional people feel productive when they feel good. Disciplined people are productive even when they feel nothing. That difference separates short bursts of effort from long-term results. Success does not come from intensity. It comes from reliability. Discipline is also misunderstood as harsh or cruel. In reality, discipline is self-respect. It is the act of honoring commitments you made to yourself. It is choosing long-term benefit over short-term comfort. That choice builds trust within. When you repeatedly follow through without needing motivation, your brain begins to trust you. And when the brain trusts you, it stops creating resistance. Resistance exists to protect you from disappointment. Discipline removes that fear by proving follow-through. This is why disciplined action feels heavy at first and lighter later. In the beginning, the brain doubts consistency. Over time, it adapts. It stops fighting what it sees as inevitable. Action becomes smoother not because it is easier, but because it is expected. Discipline is also quiet. It does not need recognition. It does not need praise. It is internal alignment. When your actions match your values, the noise inside you reduces. That calm is not excitement. It is clarity. People who rely on emotion often burn out. They push hard when inspired and collapse when energy drops. Disciplined people pace themselves. They do less per day but do it every day. That steady pace wins over time. Discipline does not mean forcing maximum effort constantly. It means showing up consistently, even at a lower intensity. A small action done daily beats a massive effort done rarely. The brain responds better to repetition than to extremes. This is why discipline feels mechanical. Wake up, do the task, repeat. There is no story attached, no drama, no waiting, just movement. And that simplicity is what makes it powerful. Emotional attachment to performance creates pressure. Discipline removes pressure by focusing on process. You are not trying to feel successful. You are simply doing what needs to be done today. The result takes care of itself. Discipline also protects you from self-sabotage. When emotions run high, people make impulsive decisions. Discipline provides structure during emotional storms. It keeps behavior steady when the mind feels chaotic. This is why discipline outlasts motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. It does not depend on confidence or clarity. It depends on commitment. And commitment is a choice, not a feeling. When you stop expecting discipline to feel good, you stop resisting it. You accept that some days will feel flat, heavy, or dull, and you act anyway. That acceptance removes internal conflict. Discipline also builds pride, not the loud kind, the quiet kind. The kind that comes from knowing you did what you said you would do. That pride strengthens identity, and identity drives future behavior. Over time, disciplined action reshapes your self-image. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes. That shift is subtle but life-changing. Discipline is not punishment. It is freedom from emotional dependency. It frees you from waiting for the right mood. It frees you from inconsistency. It frees you from self-doubt. And once you understand this, you stop chasing motivation. You stop judging yourself for not feeling ready. You simply act calmly, steadily, repeatedly. And that is where real power is built. Most people believe they need clarity before they begin. They think they must understand the full plan, see the whole path, and feel certain about the outcome. So they wait until everything makes sense. But clarity does not come from thinking. It comes from moving. The mind becomes clearer when it is engaged in action. When you act, you receive feedback. You see what works and what doesn't. You feel what fits and what doesn't. That information cannot be accessed through imagination alone. It only appears through experience. Thinking without action creates confusion. The mind circles the same ideas again and again. Doubt multiplies because there is no real-world evidence to settle it. The brain fills gaps with fear assumptions and worst-case scenarios. Action interrupts that loop. This is why people who take action often feel calmer, even when their lives are busy. Movement organizes the mind. It gives your thoughts direction. Instead of endless possibilities, you now have concrete data, and data reduces anxiety. Clarity is not something you discover in silence. It is something you earn through repetition. Each step forward sharpens your understanding. Each attempt refines your direction. You don't need the full picture. You need the next step. The brain learns best through trial and adjustment. When you act, you test reality. You learn what you enjoy, what you tolerate, and what drains you. Those insights are impossible to gain from planning alone. Action teaches what thought cannot. This is why starting small is powerful. A small action creates a small insight. That insight leads to a better next step. Momentum builds, not because you suddenly became confident, but because the fog began to lift. People who wait for clarity often say they feel stuck. In reality, they are overloaded with options and underloaded with experience. Action reduces options by revealing truth. It removes fantasy and replaces it with facts. Clarity also grows with commitment. When you commit to doing something daily, the mind adapts. It stops questioning direction and starts optimizing execution. Doubt fades not because everything is perfect, but because consistency demands focus. Action also builds trust with yourself. Each time you act, you prove that you can handle uncertainty. That proof creates confidence. Confidence then reduces the need for clarity. You become comfortable moving forward without full understanding. This is why beginners overthink and professionals act. Experience teaches that perfection is unnecessary. Progress reveals what needs to be adjusted, and adjustment is easier than endless planning. When you act, you shift from observer to participant. Life stops feeling theoretical. You are no longer watching others move forward while you analyze. You are inside the process, and being inside the process changes perspective. Clarity also comes from friction. Resistance shows you where growth is needed. Difficulty highlights weakness. Without action, those signals never appear, and without signals there is no improvement. Action reveals priorities. When you are busy doing, you quickly see what matters and what doesn't. Distractions become obvious. Time wasting becomes uncomfortable. Purpose sharpens through use. This is why people who act feel more alive. Engagement brings energy. Even imperfect effort creates a sense of direction. Direction reduces mental noise, and reduced noise feels like clarity. The illusion of clarity before action keeps people passive. They think clarity is a prerequisite, but clarity is a consequence. Waiting for it delays growth. Movement invites it. Once you accept that you do not need clarity to begin, pressure disappears. You stop needing certainty. You stop demanding guarantees. You trust that understanding will come as you move. This mindset shift is powerful. It frees you from paralysis. It allows progress without permission. It replaces overthinking with engagement. Action also simplifies decisions. When you are moving, the next step becomes obvious. When you are still, everything feels equally confusing. Motion narrows focus naturally. Over time, action builds an internal compass. You develop intuition through repetition. That intuition feels like clarity, but it was earned through doing, not thinking. The people who seem certain were once uncertain. The difference is they acted anyway, and action taught them what thought never could. When you stop waiting to understand everything before you move, life begins to respond. Doors open not because you planned perfectly, but because you showed up. And that is the real truth. Action creates clarity, because clarity is built through contact with reality, not through imagination, not through waiting, but through movement. Most people are searching for a feeling they believe should come first. A sense of readiness, confidence, energy, or belief. They assume that once this feeling arrives, everything will become easier, but that feeling is not missing. It is misplaced. The feeling you want is a response, not a requirement. It is released after effort, not before it. The brain does not reward intention. It rewards movement, completion, and progress. Until it sees proof of effort, it withholds motivation. This is why starting feels heavy and continuing feels lighter. In the beginning, the brain is unsure. It conserves energy. It creates resistance. But once action begins, the brain adjusts. It shifts from protection to support. Motivation is a chemical response. It is triggered by progress and consistency. When the brain sees you moving, it releases energy, focus, and confidence to help you continue. When it sees you waiting, it withholds those resources. People misinterpret this early resistance as a sign that something is wrong. They think if it feels hard, they should stop. But the difficulty is simply the brain asking for proof, and proof only comes through action. This is why people often feel motivated after they start, not before. They clean one small area and suddenly want to clean more. They write a few sentences and suddenly ideas flow. The work itself unlocks the feeling. Waiting for motivation is like waiting for muscles before lifting weights. Strength appears after resistance, not before it. The same law applies to the mind. Effort precedes capacity. The feeling you are waiting for, confidence, belief, clarity, energy, is earned through survival of discomfort. Each time you act despite resistance, you teach your brain that you can handle it. That lesson changes how you feel next time. This is also why shortcuts fail. Artificial motivation fades quickly because it is not backed by proof. Real motivation lasts because it is built on experience. The brain trusts what it has seen repeatedly. Action also changes identity. When you act, you stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes. You begin seeing yourself as someone who does. That identity shift brings confidence naturally, without forcing it. People who move first gain an unfair advantage. They access motivation early because they triggered it through action. Others remain stuck waiting for permission that never arrives. The feeling you want lives on the far side of effort. It cannot be accessed through thought. It cannot be summoned by desire. It appears when the brain sees commitment. This is why disciplined people rarely talk about motivation. They don't need it to start, and because they start, they receive it automatically. Motivation becomes a side effect, not a struggle. Once you experience this cycle, you stop waiting. You no longer search for inspiration. You know that movement will bring it. That knowledge removes hesitation. The brain is designed to support what is already happening. When you begin, it helps. When you stop, it resists. That is not cruelty, that is efficiency. This is why the first step matters more than the 100th. The first step activates the system. The system then carries you forward. You don't need to feel ready. You need to feel willing. Willing to start without guarantees. Willing to move without permission. When you act first, the feeling follows quietly. Confidence grows without announcement. Energy builds without hype. Belief strengthens without effort. And once you understand this, you stop asking how to feel motivated. You start asking what to do next. And the moment you do the work, the feeling you were waiting for finally appears. Every action you take is a statement about who you are becoming. Not the big dramatic actions, but the small repeated ones. The mind does not listen to what you say about yourself. It watches what you do, and it builds identity from evidence. Most people try to change their identity through thinking. They tell themselves they are disciplined, confident, or focused. But identity is not installed through words. It is formed through behavior, repeated over time. What you practice becomes who you are. When you do the work on days you don't feel like it, something powerful happens. You break the old pattern. You show your brain that action is possible without motivation. That single act carries more weight than 100 affirmations. Identity strengthens when behavior is consistent. Each completed task becomes proof. Proof becomes belief. Belief becomes self-image, and self-image drives future behavior automatically. This is how change becomes permanent. People who struggle with discipline often believe they lack willpower. In reality, they lack identity alignment. Their actions do not yet match the person they want to become. Doing the work bridges that gap. When you act consistently, your inner dialogue changes. You stop questioning your capability. You stop doubting your follow-through. The mind stops arguing because it has evidence. Evidence quiets insecurity. This is why small wins matter. They may look insignificant from the outside, but they matter deeply to identity. One completed task reinforces the belief that you finish what you start. That belief compounds quickly. Doing the work also eliminates self-betrayal. Each time you follow through, you repair trust with yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Without it, motivation collapses. With it, action becomes natural. Identity is not about intensity. It is about reliability. You don't become strong by one hard day. You become strong by showing up when no one is watching. That consistency rewires how you see yourself. This is why people who train regularly feel different even before visible results appear. Their identity shifts first. They start seeing themselves as someone who trains. The behavior becomes automatic because it matches identity. Doing the work also removes imposter syndrome. When your actions match your goals, doubt loses its power. You no longer feel like you are pretending. You know you are earning your place. Identity built through action is stable. It does not collapse under stress. It does not disappear when emotions fluctuate. It is rooted in habit, not mood. That stability creates calm. This is why disciplined people move confidently, not because they believe blindly, but because their history supports them. Their past actions back their present decisions. When you do the work repeatedly, your standards rise naturally. You stop tolerating excuses, not because you are harsh, but because excuses no longer match who you are. Identity filters behavior. People often wait to feel like a disciplined person before acting. But discipline is not a feeling. It is a pattern. And patterns create identity, not the other way around. This is why change feels slow at first. Identity resists sudden shifts. But once enough evidence accumulates, the shift becomes permanent. You cross a quiet line where effort feels normal. Doing the work also simplifies decision-making. You stop asking who you want to be. You already know. Your actions answered that question. Over time, you stop trying to change yourself. You simply act in alignment. And alignment removes friction. Behavior flows naturally. The strongest identity is built in silence. No announcements, no validation, just repeated proof. That proof shapes the person you become. Once your identity changes, your habits follow automatically. You no longer need discipline to force action. Action becomes an expression of who you are. This is why doing the work matters beyond results. It builds the person capable of sustaining those results, and that person is built one action at a time. If you feel tired right now, that sits okay. Real change is not loud. It does not rush. It settles quietly inside you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need permission. You don't need motivation. You only need the courage to take the next small step, even when it feels uncomfortable. Because every time you act without waiting, you weaken the old version of yourself and strengthen the one you are becoming. Do the work today, even if it feels ordinary, even if no one notices. Ordinary effort, done consistently, creates extraordinary lives. And one day, without drama, without announcement, you will look back and realize you didn't become motivated, you became reliable. And reliability is what wins.